Sure. Basically, what we do is we go around and we collect feedstock from restaurants from their spent vegetable oil, and then we collect it and we process it into biodiesel.
Is that a big, long process? Tell me, how does it work?
It's actually pretty simple. I know a lot of people might say, well, gosh, biodiesel, a lot of people maybe have heard of it. Some people have not. Basically, diesels were designed by Rudolf Diesel back in the late 1800s, and when he invented it, it was to run right off of peanut oil. So the concept of running a diesel motor off of vegetable oil is nothing new in any way. But of course, since that time, we've had improvements in emissions and everything else, and henceforth somehow we went to a petroleum-based product, and we just the process of converting it is really pretty simple. I mean, there are chemicals involved, and you have to react it, and as you react it, you basically take out the glycerin and some of the all of the particles that would play havoc on a motor, just particles and things of that nature. So,
okay,
hopefully that answers your question.
Well, it kind of does, but I got to drill in a little bit deeper, if you don't mind. Tell me, when I read the word biomass, help me understand what is biomass in this application.
Biomass is just like biomass fuels. That could be like an ethanol that's used from corn for gas, oil, vegetable oil, whether virgin or used, converted into a fuel, wood pellets, things of that nature. And the biomass, the whole umbrella of it, if you will, is called biomass, and what we focus in on is the biodiesel, and we focus in on used vegetable oil, and the reason why we focus in on used is I'm a business guy, and I love the environment, but I also love things that make sense. And for me, in order for recycling to make sense, it's got to be able to be self-sustaining. And a lot of things aren't. I mean, if you take, like recyclable glass, you recycle glass, in a lot of cases it takes more energy to convert that used glass and reconvert it into something new than it does just to make new product. That, to me, is something I would consider wouldn't be self-sustaining. What we're taking is a used product that basically is, for all intents and purposes, somewhat worthless, and we're taking and creating value from that, and we're able to create value, and we're able to make a profit from it, and we're able to do it without any type of government subsidies and so forth. So it's a business. It is a for-profit business, and it's extremely good for the environment. I mean, biodiesel fuels that run off of vegetable oil, according to the American Lung Association, are 90%, that's 90% better for the environment than petroleum-based. Yep. So, while there's not enough used vegetable oil to totally eliminate any of the fuel crisis we have in this country, it's just a small piece of the puzzle that helps, and I believe that there's not any one solution. It's going to be several solutions put together that are going to solve some of our problems.
I very much agree with that, but as you're aware, the topic itself has become a little bit of a political football, and so I've probably been misguided by that, at least by what I'm concluding from what you're telling us. First off, when I just think of biomass or biodiesel fuel without having listening to your dialogue here, my thought had always been it came from corn, and that drives up the price of food. Now, I think that's been the average person's perception of it. Is that, and you're telling me that's just not the case?
No, I think that's what you're pointing to as one of the problems of the biomass, because when the ethanol plants started up, what they did is they used a commodity-based product, which was food, to make that fuel, and of course that drove up the price of food, and it ended up, a lot of them ended up going out of business because they're playing with a commodity that was so volatile. And that's why we focus on used vegetable oil, because it's not food. It's I guess you could eat it, but I don't think you'd want to eat it. From what when we see it. And that's why we focus on used. Now, there's other types of biomass to where they use brand new product. It's called virgin oil, and they actually grow seeds. They harvest the seeds, they crush the seeds, and they convert that into fuel. There are some. What do I want to say? There are some. Gosh, I'm missing the point. There's some strides that are becoming known in that and are moving forward. But for the most part, whenever it's tied to the food chain, I think it can be very problematic, just as you just said.
Back in the 80s, Mark, I was invested in a restaurant. That's kind of like an oxymoron. Restaurants are not a good investment. Don't try it. But that said, from what I'm gathering, you're talking about. Are you talking? Let me just ask it rather than projecting. But are you talking about my deep fryer oil that would have been sold off in barrels for whatever they did with it at the time?
Exactly.
Okay, so you're collecting those things from your community restaurants. Is that where you're getting your foundation product?
That is correct.
Okay, are you paying a lot of dough for it, or they're passing on to you, or I'm just trying to get a general.
Well, what we try to do is we try to bring a whole package of value. And basically how I got in this business is I'm an inventor by nature, and I have some patents, and I wrote a book on it. And I looked at what they were using as a solution, and it was kind of like they hadn't changed since the 50s.
Right.
And there's a lot of problems that come with using used vegetable oil, and some of the biggest problems are how do you keep it clean, and how the bulk of it's done is it's put behind the building, it collects moisture, it collects flies, rodents, everything else. It's picked up every 3 months. And then what has to be done is it has to be treated extensively with chemicals to get all of the junk back out of it. What we did is I invented some proprietary equipment. I basically sat down with some large restaurant groups and said, hey, what do you like about how you're doing now? What don't you like? And then I said, if I could come up with a better system and to change it, would you be interested in working with us? And we had several yeses. So I basically sat down. We came up with a better system. Ours is all inside. We vacuum it. Our process is to keep the oil at the very best, the finest value we can, so that we don't have to treat it with chemicals and everything as much. And then we offer a share on those profits. And a restaurant isn't going to get rich off of it by any means, but what they do they get a process that's inside. They get better value for their organization. They're contributing to the biomass industry. They don't, it's far safer. They don't have to go out in the parking lot at night. You don't have to worry about people tripping, in the parking lot over snow and ice and dumping hot oil. And they do get a small percentage of a share back. And in a lot of restaurants, it doesn't matter, because most restaurants, that's called the back end. And as you well know, Mike, when you had your restaurant, you probably said, okay, we're going to make chicken dinners, and we're going to factor in our cost of grease, and it just goes out. Whatever happens really happens to it. You're getting your money hopefully off the front end, and so we just try to service that back end as well as we can, make it clean, and add all those attributes and values, and offer a little bit of share in it.
Tell me this: if I put my old restaurateur hat on, one of the things, first off, I like as a restaurateur everything that you talked about in terms of not having these big, gigantic, ugly. We used to use what was essentially 50-gallon drums like the military had, and so we ended up with a row of them out back, and they were everything you described, but they were really unsightly for customers that drove around the building, and there wasn't much that could be done with it. But if I brought it inside, one of the things that was occurring to me while you were talking is, what about the smell? Because the vegetable oil that's been used, and to your point, in my restaurant at least, we made a lot of fish. And so now you've got all of these big, gigantic canisters of partially hardened or softened, if you will, vegetable oil that's going to give off an aroma.
Right. What we do is a lot of that is just picking it up. We pick it up timely, and a lot of the stink that you were associated with was everything that stuff
wait,
brought.
Mark, me. The oil was associated with the stink. I can't believe Jim Riley didn't grab that. I figured I better jump in there.
I'll let that one just swim on its own.
I'm not going to touch it either. But a lot of the smell that is associated with it being outside is infestation of bugs and garbage, and people treat it as garbage when they put it outside. And there's I've seen things, rubber gloves and canisters and chicken bones, everything else in there. And what we do is we pick it up quick. When I say quick, every 2 or 3 weeks, and we turn that oil, and there's not any water in it, bugs, and that sort of stuff.
What kind of machinery or vehicles are you powering with your end product? What are we using it for typically?
Well, biodiesel is at the pump, and a lot of people may not realize it. But when you go to Meyer or whoever to get your diesel, if you look on the pump, you'll see usually 20, it'll say like a B20 or B10. What that means is that 20% of that product is biodiesel. Okay, so 20% of that product comes from companies like ours, and that's what that B20 is. So 80% petroleum, 20% biodiesel.
Who do you sell to?
We sell to refineries, and then we also sell to excavators and things like that. We don't sell it for over-the-road use. We could, but we don't get involved in we don't want to sell it as a road fuel, just so we don't have to deal with taxes and all.
There's a difference between selling it to people that are excavating versus over the road, is what you're telling us?
Just from a tax standpoint, what you have to do is you have to color it, and then you have to have a license to charge the taxation so the state can get the tax for the fuel.
But they're not imposing that on if I was running a backhoe with it, is what you're telling me.
Correct.
Is that because they don't see that there's any money, or they forgot, or I'm just surprised the government left something untouched and unmolested?
No, I think it's because it falls under the road taxation. I mean, I'm not a tax expert, but that's how I understand it.
I don't think the tax experts, at least within the government, are experts. The only thing they know is we need more.
Well, exactly, and I think it boils down to legislation from the standpoint of when you go to the pump, so much of that is going towards a tax that paves the roads and maintains the roads. When you're using a bulldozer or something, you're not using it on the road, so therefore the tax doesn't apply.
Okay, that makes sense. All right, well, I need you to. We're going to head to a break, but stay right there, Mark, because when we come back, we've got a lot more conversation for you.
Great.
Renegade River in Spring Lake wants to buy your used handguns and hunting guns. Renegade River, your hunting, camping, and survival store. Stop in and check out their new and used firearms, sporting goods, Army and Navy supplies, and survival gear. Downtown Spring Lake, next to the police station.
Hi, this is Jim Riley, your host of Eye on Muskegon, every Sunday morning from 8:30 to 10 and on the internet at eyeonmuskegon.com. Politics can be aggravating and to some just plain boring. But our elected politicians are spending your hard-earned tax dollars and sometimes borrowing from your children to pay for it every day, even here in Muskegon. We'll continue our quest to expose the power that local power brokers and politicians have over you and your family this Sunday morning, 8:30 to 10 at Eye on Muskegon on Newstalk 1090 WKBZ, the Talk of Muskegon.
The funny thing about credit is that it's the kind of thing that you never have to think about until it's too late. If some bad person, and I'm sorry, they're out there, steals your identity, you could find out too late that they've been opening up all these accounts under your name and charging things to you. It's just a mess, and it happens to millions of people every year. I personally love CreditKarma.com because it's a free site that gives you a free credit score and helps protect you against identity theft. They give you free credit monitoring and a really cool smartphone app, so you can get alerts sent right to you when there are changes like a new account. It can save you a whole bunch of headaches. They have bank level security, so it's super safe. It's super free. It's CreditKarma.com. I used it to check my credit score. I know the founders. It's a stand-up company, and I recommend that you go there today and make sure your credit is okay. The website is CreditKarma.com. It's safe and it's secure. It's the one that I use. Check your credit score today at CreditKarma.com.
Progressive presents Flo's newest smash hit. The Name Your Price tool gives you lots of coverage options.
The Name Your Price tool. You give us a budget and we'll show you a range of coverage options. But we can't go over all the dessert options. Your server will be back in just a second and he'll explain.
The Name Your Price tool, only from Progressive. Visit Progressive.com today. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and affiliates. Price and coverage match limited by state law.
How can you have Kim Commando when and where you want her? Simple. Become a Kim's Club member and join the Commando family. When you do, you can listen to Kim when you want in crystal clear digital audio. At home, in your car, at work, and at the gym. Wherever! You also get entered into Kim's contest automatically. Possibly win trips, cruises, televisions, laptops, iPads, and more. Nice. So join Kim's Club today. Go to Commando.com. That's KOMANDO.com. And at the top right, click the button that says Kim's Club.
Be a survivor, not a statistic. Renegade River in Spring Lake has new and used handguns, hunting guns, sporting goods, and survival gear. Protect your rights and your freedom. Ask about their CPL classes. Renegade River, next to the police station in downtown Spring Lake.
News Talk 1090 is the talk of Muskegon.
Welcome back. You're listening to the Renegade River Show, and my name is Mike Hewitt. Today we've got Jim Riley riding shotgun. Jim is the host of Ion Muskegon.
Locked and loaded, dude.
Locked and loaded. And on the line with us is Mark McKittrick, and we're discussing his biodiesel fuel business. And I'm kind of reminded while we're going forward, in fact, let me say flatly that no matter how hard the left works to extinguish the fire, the American spirit lives on in entrepreneurs like Mark. So, Mark, thank you for forging forward with that, but it brings me to ask you a question. When, as you set your business up, especially on this particular type of business, did you run into a wall of regulation with the government, or do they open their arms embracing your entrepreneurial spirit?
You run into a lot of walls. And I will say, I hate to say this because I picture myself as an optimist, but it just seems to be getting more and more cumbersome, and I think that's disheartening because I believe that Americans have solutions to any problem that's out there, and I think if we really empower small businesses and get behind them and support them, that there's so much energy and excitement and new things that come from small businesses, and that's not to say anything bad about big corporations, but it's just it's a lot of times those little businesses that come up with the next greatest thing that end up being the next Facebook or whatever it is. So I think our government really should encourage, with everything it has, small business, and a lot of times those regulations do get in the way, and it equates to big money. I mean, it just ends up, regulations just end up costing more money, and I think it just takes a lot of people out of the game that would normally be in the game.
It seems like, though, and part of the thing, let me give you an example. I think there's a little bit of dogma that with the political rhetoric from both the left and the right, frankly, I think there's a great portion or percentage of our society that would be surprised to know that you're a conservative invested in alternative fuels. And so just in the same breath, let me turn around and say that it seems like there's a lot of folks on the left that are excited when they hear you say that these things cost a lot of money. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I mean, I think it does. Is there a question there?
Yeah, there is. Am I wrong to think that, well, let me give you an idea. When I think of an entrepreneur invested in the kind of business you are, I think of Willie Nelson. And your politics doesn't seem to have anything to do with Willie Nelson's, who's very hard left.
Correct.
So you'd refer to yourself as a conservative, I assume, like I thought?
Right, absolutely.
Okay, so then when I say that the government, or a lot of folks within the electorate actually, are excited to hear that hard taxation hits small business or that regulation are obstacles that are difficult to overcome, it seems that, and I guess the question is that I think that some people are excited by that perception, but you're kind of confirming for me that perception is a reality.
Yeah, I believe it is, and I think that just kind of boils right down to balance. You know, there has to be balance, and you know, you have to have some regulation, obviously. But if you go the other way and put too much regulation, then we have a market like we're seeing now with you know, slow business startups and failures and on and on and on. So I mean, there really has to be a balance, and I mean, I think the big difference is I got into the biodiesel business because there's opportunity for a good business. It's a great business model with what I came up with, and not me, but with myself and other people, what we came up with. I think possibly the liberals would get into the business simply because it's green. And, you know, that's the balance. I mean, green is important, yeah. I mean, if we can be better in the environment, why wouldn't we? But don't get into something and make it green just because it's green. Get into something that makes sense from an economic standpoint, a job standpoint, and an environmental standpoint.
Mark, one of the complaints by people on the right, myself in particular, is with biomass or any of the green energies, is that they are forced upon either electric companies in the form of subsidies for wind power or other types of green energy. I know that, of course, one of the reasons gasoline prices are so high is because of this really weird imbalance because of the forced production of ethanol. It would seem to me that there are incentives by buyers to have biomass produced additives in one of the products that you make. Is there a benefit either to your company or to the people who buy your product that comes from the government in a subsidy or any other form?
There is in the biomass industry for large volumes, and that's why most of our product goes to the big refineries, because they produce X a million. And you're right, it's mandated that they have to buy so much, and there is a $1 per gallon credit that the producers get, and it's millions of gallons. I think you have to do 20 million gallons a month in order to tap into that. And then there's also what's called RIN credits, which are carbon emission deductions. And the grand plan behind that was to say to a coal plant, for instance, to say, okay, you need to reduce your emissions by 10%. And the way that they managed that was by RINs, okay? And it was much like a stock market type of thing. So every gallon of fuel like that we produce, we would get so many RINs. And then you trade those RINs. So if ConocoPhillips needed to reduce their RINs by 20 million, and they could only achieve 10 million, they could go out and buy these RINs from companies like us that had them. But the problem it became a very, whoever controlled the program, I think at the government level, don't quote me, but at whatever level, whoever controlled that, it got into all types of fraud and everything, and it's currently on stand for now.
I just find it amazing that a government program ended up embroiled in fraud.
How could that happen?
Yeah, that's just shocking.
This is government. They have controls and follow-up and research and people of goodwill.
I just thought that happened in schools over grading. Oh, wait, that's another topic.
Separate issue.
Well, but That's the big difference. I mean, when we set out to do our program, and there's a lot involved with what we have. I mean, we have a highly specialized vehicles that we've developed with specialized pump systems that's not on the market. I mean, we developed it and invented it ourselves, in our tanks that go inside the restaurants and all that. But the difference is, when we did it, we had the opportunity to take our business model and factor in to the pro forma, $1 a credit and all these other things, and we didn't, because my concern as a business guy is I would not want to have a business that relies on a government subsidy, because those things come and go, and this dollar credit comes up for renewal almost every year, and they take it away for so many months, and then it's like it comes back. But my concern was, what if that thing doesn't come back? What if you set your whole business model up on that, and your buck is your profit, and all of a sudden that goes away? Well, that's what you saw with the ethanol plants. That subsidy went away, and now you've got these $20 million plants sitting idle. Let
me ask you something, Mark, just to maybe unconfuse myself a little bit, but to Jim's point with his question and your answer, you referred to big companies that are getting that subsidy. Are you telling me that then that your business does not benefit either directly or indirectly from the government funding, or are you saying that yes, you do, and the business model is kind of based on that? We as our company, my company, does not benefit. Because of the small size of your business, is what you're saying? Well, it is because of the size. Now, we may benefit indirectly, because if we market our product to a large refinery, we may get a little bit more for that product because of the subsidy, but it's a free market thing. It's not where we get it from the government, if that makes sense. Well, okay. Let me change gears a little bit, if I can, gentlemen. On the regulation side of this, one of the things that we talked about on break here amongst ourselves is the waste. What are you? Is there a government regulation that causes you to do a certain thing with the waste? Because we're talking about cleaning, as you pointed out, the bones and the deep fried batter and all of that. What do you have to do with that, and how is the government involved in that action? Well, that's something that's probably a little bit over my head, because the question you're asking, Mike, pertains to very large corporations that pick this stuff up and have like millions and millions of dollars of centrifuges and everything else. What I did differently in order to compete with all that, we didn't have the money to go out and buy $1 million facilities. So what we did is we said, hey, let's just keep the stuff clean. And so, ours is clean, and then we market, to someone who refines it, and because our quality is so good. No, I appreciate that, Mark, and I'm not trying to be divisive, but I owned a restaurant, and so I remember when we would change our deep fryers, and in fact, I've been in the back end of a lot of restaurants in my life, and I remember some of them don't. For instance, some restaurants change their deep fryers over every other day. Some of them will run it until it's burnt. You can smell it, and so no matter what you do, there is going to be. It seems like, at least from my restaurant experience, there's going to be dirt. Or not dirt. There's going to be things that need to be particles, etc., that need to be removed. So you must end up with some level of that in order for you to take. Yes, certainly a cleaner product, but to make it clean enough to burn. Am I missing a step here, or help me out? Well, a little bit from what we do. We focus only on quality oil, okay, and we focus on non-hydrogenated oil. So,
do you have any waste though at all?
If you call waste, basically what we're going to do is we're going to polish that. So we're going to take all the sediments out. If it's whatever, shrimp, flour, dust, right, French fry here and there, things like that is what we take out. But that's just organic stuff. we're not doing what other companies do, where they have to go and centrifuge it because, there's molecular breakdowns and there's all this junk that's been put into the oil.
So you're saying,
and that's why our system is different, Mike, because you can't compare it to somebody who just puts barrels outside where it's getting water and all types of insects, and people throw junk in there and things of that nature, if that makes sense.
It does make sense, and I appreciate it, but it seems like you're still going to have to, and you'll still end up with some waste, and perhaps it's just not a volume enough that it's worth the dialogue, but the question still is what little you do get, like the remnants of French fries, etc., is the government causing you to do something with it, or is it just normal waste that you put in a garbage bag and send to the dump?
Yeah, most of that's just normal waste that goes to landfill, and a lot of that's done by the restaurant before we get it, because a lot of the filtration systems are right under the fryers.
Okay, so if I'm taking my fryer just to try to get my head around it, not to belabor it too much more, but if I've got my 5 gallons worth of shortening that's been used up in my deep fryer, I'm pouring it into your receptacle. You've got a screen on top that's removing a lot of those particles, etc., or...
Yeah, we have micro polishers. We polish it at the tank, and then we polish it at our vehicle.
I see. Okay, well, so there's 2 steps that I wasn't seeing: the vehicle step and the micro polisher within your own receptacle.
Correct.
Okay, I'm getting that to add up.
Let me ask you a question Mark. We've heard some very successful entrepreneurs say that they couldn't get started today if they had to start over. I believe Subway restaurant sandwiches was one of them. But if you had to start today, would you be able to?
Oh, I would, because I'm a diehard entrepreneur. I mean, I've been doing this stuff since 1989, and it's just my way of life. I've always been self-sustaining, and the thing, there's always a way, and there's always opportunity. America has, if I had more time and resources, there's so many businesses I could start. And that's why I wrote my book, because my goal in life is to empower people to look at the opportunities that present themselves and come up with solutions, and that's the biggest thing. There's always a solution, and there's always a way. It's just we don't look deep enough and far enough usually.
Now, Mark, you mentioned books, and you happen to hit a little bit of a topic that I like. Tell us a little bit about your book.
Well, my book is it's called The Inexpensive Guide to Ideaing, and really what I wrote the book for was just to get people empowered from all walks of life to proceed with their idea. And I when I started, I had a corporation, and I did a couple patents, and it cost me several thousands of dollars. And through my own way of doing things, I thought, boy, is there a way that I could do this? Because it costs so much to patent a product. Is there a way that I could figure out if a product could get traction before I spend all this money to protect it? Because what good is it if I protect it if I don't even have a sale? Because I'm a sales guy. If you don't sell something, you don't make any money. And, as time progressed in my life, I've had several people come to me, want me to help them with ideas and projects. And it's another thing I do is I design and source products for Fortune companies. And I have people that come to me and say, can you help me with this idea? And I just didn't have the time to help them like I would want to. And I said, boy, it's a good idea. You should pursue it. And they said, boy, but I don't know where to start. And so my book is just a real rudimentary, simple way for a guy that is working as a janitor in a building that says, boy, I think I got a better idea for a trash receptacle. I am so tired of working with these trash receptacles. Who's designing this? And the janitor comes at it from a whole different perspective, because he's dealing with the trash can full and how to empty it. The engineer just dealt with how he's going to manufacture it and make the thing, inexpensive enough for the multi-conglomerate to market it and make a buck. So that's what my book does. No question about it. I'm excited about actually getting a copy of your book.
How does the person get a copy?
It's available at Amazon.com. It's available pretty much at all the bookstores, Barnes & Nobles, I think, online.
And the title?
The Inexpensive Guide to IDing.
Ideaing.
Spell that.
IDEAING.
There we go. IDEAing. Okay, got a lot of vowels to roll around on an Easter afternoon.
I like it, gentlemen. We're going to head to a break. Keep that thought, Mark. We'll be back in just a moment.
Be a survivor, not a statistic. Renegade River in Spring Lake has new and used handguns, hunting guns, sporting goods, and survival gear. Protect your rights and your freedom. Ask about their CPL classes. Renegade River, next to the police station in downtown Spring Lake.
Working in IT is tough. You're responsible for all systems, networks, and users. And problems can happen at any moment. Don't make your job even more difficult by struggling with complicated tools. There's a better way. Use GoToAssist by Citrix. All the support tools you need are in one simple integrated cloud-based product. With GoToAssist, you can quickly and easily log incidents and track resolutions with Service Desk. Troubleshoot problems at any time, no matter where you are, with GoToAssist lightning fast remote support, even from your iPad or Android device. And when you have GoToAssist monitoring, you can set up proactive tasks so you're always the first to know about any issues. I highly recommend GoToAssist. It sets up in minutes and will make your IT life much easier and allow you to get problems fixed quickly and efficiently. Sign up for your special 45-day free trial today. Visit GoToAssist.com. Click on the Try It Free button. Use promo code KIM. That's GoToAssist.com. Promo code KIM.
Renegade River in Spring Lake wants to buy your used handguns and hunting guns. Renegade River, your hunting, camping, and survival store. Stop in and check out their new and used firearms, sporting goods, Army and Navy supplies, and survival gear. Downtown Spring Lake, next to the police station.
Fox News Radio, I'm Jared Halpern. A manhunt in North Texas after Kaufman County District Attorney Mike McClellan and his wife are discovered shot to death in their home.
This comes on the heels of the murder of Kaufman County Prosecutor Mark Hasse. Investigators now believe there may be a connection to that case. About 2 months ago, Hasse was shot in broad daylight as he walked from his car to the Kaufman County Courthouse.
KDFW TV reporter Melissa Cutler. A deal on immigration reform coming together in the Senate.
First, people will be legalized. In other words, not citizens, but they'll be allowed to work, come out of the shadows, travel.
New York Democrat Chuck Schumer and Arizona Republican Jeff Flake on NBC's Meet the Press.
We've had trouble getting good metrics out of the Department of Homeland Security. We're going to have that before we move further.
Increased border security, also a key provision of any bill. Fox News, we report, you decide.
Here's the official News Talk 1090 WKBZ forecast for this Easter Sunday afternoon. Cloudy skies and a high around 45. Southwest winds 10 to 20. Tonight, partly to mostly cloudy, a low of 28. Northwest winds 15 to 25. For tomorrow, occasional snow showers with a high around 35. Northwest winds 15 to 25. And still a chance of snow showers on Tuesday with a high around 35. For Wednesday, back to sunshine at a high of 41. News Talk 1090 WKBZ, the talk of Muskegon.
Country.
Welcome back. You're listening to the Renegade River Show, and my name is Mike Hewitt, and we've got Jim Riley, who's the host of Ion Muskegon, riding shotgun with us today.
I wish I had my shotgun to shoot right now. Just provide a little addition.
And on the line, with us, we've got Mark McKittrick, who's helping us become entrepreneurs and get our head around some alternative energies. Mark, welcome back.
Thanks, Mike.
Hey, in the last segment, we were talking a little bit about some of the obstacles and ideas in your book that you've got, which I really salute you on. Having written a book myself, it's an undertaking that I know when I started out on page 1, I thought was going to be a breeze, and by the time I got to the end, it had proven to be a big education for me. But one of the things I wanted to talk about specifically, it's kind of on the topic of your book, is my father, who's passed away now, but when my dad invented an item back in the early 80s, and got a patent on it. You know, the patent lawyer, I remember him telling us, you can't really patent a coffee cup. So he was trying to dial us back on exactly what part of the piece of equipment should be patented and all of that thing. But what we ran into, when I say we, my dad's business and me helping him try to promote it and get it going, what we ran into was, along with government, we ran into a big wall with big corporate America. Because once you have this idea and you got it patented, it can be a great idea, but it still takes a lot of startup capital. So though you're standing there, and I'm talking about 1980s money, we had the plastics company saying, well, that's a good idea. It'll only take you $120,000 to have the collapsible dies made, and then it will only cost you $7 or $8 a part to have it done. And then, by the way, now that you spent whatever money you had plus $70,000, because we didn't have that kind of dough, then the next thing was, is how are you going to market it? And this was before the internet, and even with the internet, marketing is hugely expensive. I know that from the businesses I've owned and operated in my adult life. So now I look to a fellow like you that, I don't want to say you make it look easy, but Mark, you make it look easy. So what's the key here? If I were to start over with my dad's invention and I handed it to you today, what advice would you give me, short of him and I running our heads into the brick wall for years?
It's an excellent question. From my standpoint, you eliminate all the obstacles first.
Like money.
One of the big, yeah. Well, if money is an obstacle and you can't overcome that obstacle, you don't do it.
Right.
And you know that up front.
Took me about 10 years to figure that one out.
Yeah, and that's really the key. I mean, I have come up, I can't even begin to tell you how many ideas that I've worked on that have failed. You know, and I mean, they were great ideas. I mean, these were things that should have gone big, but you got to remember, there's so, like I said, there's so many obstacles. Some of it can just be a timing thing. I mean, look at the touch screen. How many smartphones now are touchscreen? Almost every one of them. It was invented 20 years ago, and they laughed at it. They said it would never go anywhere. The poor guy that patented that thing 20 years ago, the patent ran out. It's public domain now.
Reminds me of the windshield wiper guy.
Yeah, exactly. So, I mean, it's eliminating those obstacles first. And in my book, that's what my book does. It just basically takes what I've done, and I wrote a book about it. I said, here's how I do it, and here's how you can do it. You know, you can patent your product for $110, and if you buy my book, the book has the complete patent template in there to make it easy, so it's all laid out. You just fill in the blanks. Now, my book's expensive. It's $129. But I wanted it to be expensive because I wanted people to really realize before they put out $129, are you really going to go forward with the idea?
Now wait a minute. I got to brag here. I think it's a reversal of bragging, but my book is $28.95 in hard copy, and you get my picture on the back.
I'll trade you one for one.
There you go. I'm in.
Give us the name. Give us the title of the book one more time.
It's called The Complete Guide to Inexpensive Ideaing. And that's IDEAING. And you're probably wondering, why did I use that word? I actually invented the word ideaing because I wanted to drive the marketing so that anybody who used or thought of the word ideaing, up came my book instead of being, 2,469,000 in the Google search.
I got to tell you, I think it's a pretty clever word. I don't know that for a fact you invented it, but it's still a pretty clever word. See, I took the more direct approach. Mine was America's Final Beginning, and I thought Jim Riley could probably spell that, so it's going to be okay.
Well, I just Googled your last name.
Mr. McKittrick or me?
Yours. No, I actually...
Don't Google my name.
I'm just looking at the Complete Guide to Inexpensive IDing paperback on Amazon right now with free shipping. Come on, it doesn't get any better than that.
There you go.
Very nice. Did you find it was taxing to write the book? Because I know it can be a challenge.
It was very taxing. I mean, it took a lot of... It just took a lot, as you well know, Mike. I mean, you basically have this goal, and I call it a power dump. I mean, I just basically power dumped everything out onto a long-winded document that was terrible, and then I had to go back and try to sort through and make it make sense, you know?
Yeah, when I did mine, I had some folks giving me some suggestions, and they'd say, Mike, you need to create an outline and write to the outline. And I said, no, that'd be too controlling. I want this to freewheel and all of that. Well, now I'm writing the sequel, and I'm doing it in outline form, okay? Yeah, enough of being a hardhead. That was tough. So
Yeah.
The book sounds like a great book. And tell me, though, you mentioned you kind of lightheartedly said you wanted it to be high. What was the rationale behind that?
Well, because I wanted people to proceed with their idea, and I wanted them to make that commitment with that dollar amount, and the value is there. I mean, from my standpoint, the patent template alone is worth the money, and then the advice that's in there, and then it's a checklist. I mean, it has a checklist of what you can go through, you know, to do your invention and how you save money. And like a lot of people don't know that they can protect their idea for $110. And one of the tips I tell people is, you know, don't spend all that money in a patent. Do a provisional patent firstly, so you get some protection, but coincide that with your marketing date when you kick off, so that you're protected, but you have a year of marketing that thing before you go and do your utility patent, which costs you the big bucks. One
of the things that surprised my father and I was after you have the patent. First off, it doesn't necessarily protect you whatsoever, but that aside, once you have the patent in your hand, you get a perpetual renewing fee that grows in size with each time you're forced to pay it to be able to keep that patent engaged. You follow what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I at the time I thought you had a patent, that's the end of it, and that's true. Except for you get an annual, ever increasing fee to keep that patent in force. And that shocked me, and it got to be pretty significant. The fee with the U.S. Patent Office I'm referring to.
Well, there's a lot to it, and I mean, you can go one step further and say that, you know, from what I have heard, and again, I'm not in any way, shape, or form a patent attorney or an attorney. I mean, this is just my approach as an entrepreneur, you know, self-taught. How am I going to do this? How do I do this? And how have I been successful? Where have I failed? You know, tweak this thing. Here's a guide how to do it. But, you know, the litigation on patents, from what I understand, in order to get an attorney out of New York, where you really need to go after somebody, you're talking I've heard that the fee, that you need to have damages of $100 million to make it worthwhile for litigation.
True enough. But I can tell you, back in 1986 money, we paid $3,000 for the attorney fees, and $3,000 is still a lot of money, but at the time it was huge, and I frankly think that every penny was a waste. But that's 30 years later saying, why'd we do that?
Of course, that would have bought you a laptop computer back then, too.
Good point. Very, very good point.
Or actually a desktop.
Yeah, desktop, the big one.
Well, that's why I challenge people. You know, a lot of people, the first thing they think of when they have an idea is, I got to patent this, I got to protect it.
Right.
And that, in my opinion, that's not the first place to start. Now, if you talk to an attorney, they'd probably say that is. But from my standpoint, being somebody who's been self-sustaining all my life, knowing that I've got to try to make my own food next week, I care more about am I going to be able to make any money off of it before I invest in it.
You know, I agree, but let me add a little bit of my own perspective. I think you've been involved in political campaigns before, haven't you, Mark?
Yeah.
Yeah, no, the reason I'm bringing that up, that was funny. Yeah, me too. But the reason I'm bringing it up is that anyone that's been through a political campaign knows that regardless of what your ideologies or your political party is, at some point in the campaign, you almost get campaign bunker mentality. And I say that because over the scope of time my father and I worked on the idea he created, dealing with these big corporations and everybody with their schemes that were going to help us, it seemed like every one of them were different angles of ripping us off, to be honest with you. And it got to the point where we became so protective of the idea that the idea never went anywhere. Does that make sense? Can you relate to that or no?
Oh, yeah. I can well relate to that. It's I learned more when I was working with a campaign than probably any other time in my life. And I might say it was painful.
Certainly was for me. Yeah, I just think that what I learned through the experience of going through trying to help my father with his idea inevitably was to try to steer our networking, if you will, to smaller companies, because dealing with the large companies was absolutely fruitless. So we're almost out of time. Mark, tell us this. We've got your book out, but say the title one more time.
The Inexpensive Guide to Ideaing.
Now, and of all of your ideas you've got that you're working on, is there anything else our listeners can help or should reach out for you?
How do you mean, Mike? I'm sorry, I didn't get that.
I'm trying to offer you a plug. You got a website or anything you'd like to mention? There you go.
Just go to ideaing.us.
Very nice. Okay. I appreciate that. And listen, on that path, I want to wish you a happy Easter and blessings for your family.
Well, you as well, and I'll throw in one thing if I can. Anybody who wants to go to the website and order the book from the author, we'll sign it and we'll give them a copy for $50 to help them on their way.
Well, that's very nice.
Whoa.
Are you in, Jim? Are you going to buy a book?
I'm going to Florida next week. I'll think about it when I come back.
You should pay extra to have it rushed to you so you've got something to read on vacation.
I think my productive days are a little over.
What's Honey Bunch going to do if she is actually stuck talking to you while you're on the trip?
Well, the good news is I'm going without Honey Bunch. We'll send her the book. On that happy note, happy Easter to all.
Happy Easter to all. Mark, thank you very much for joining us. And listeners, please have a very blessed and happy Easter. Thank you very much.
Thanks for having me.
Be a survivor, not a statistic. Renegade River in Spring Lake has new and used handguns, hunting guns, sporting goods, and survival gear. Protect your rights and your freedom. Ask about their CPL classes.